What happens when we cross into the world of time? All right, everyone. How's it going today? Um, Welcome to my channel. I do a lot of educational videos on many different topics, but for right now, I'm focused on the tree of life. This diagram here that you've seen if you've been watching my videos the last couple months. Um, this is an ancient diagram that has several different iterations. I guess there's an ancient Egyptian version, and then there's a Hebrew version, and then there's maybe a Western version. And this version that I work on was inspired by a lot of the books called Annotated, uh, done by Ra at the Osset Society, and a lot of other stuff that I've thrown into the recipe. A lot of the reciprocal system of theory and its successor, the reciprocal system 2, by Dewey Larson and Bruce Perret, respectively. Also, the synergetic geometry from Buckminster Fuller, and some quantum arithmetic from Ben Iverson, and some history studies, and a lot of other stuff. So this is kind of my version, and take it or leave it. So so that's what we're going to learn today. The tree of life has 10 different circles or spheres here. Number 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There is a thing here called the abyss, which is an implied sphere, and a 0 above the tree, for a total of 12 different categories. And these categories are often cited as being our faculties of consciousness, or you might think of it as our capabilities of consciousness, or our abilities of consciousness, aspects of consciousness, or facets of consciousness. There are just 12 different things that we have. Some are already activated, and some need to be activated. They're latent within us, some of them. The ones that are mostly activated are the ones that are further down the tree, such as number 10, which is our sense of instinct, our fight or flight response, survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle, our life is being threatened. This is where we're going to, retreat into the 10th sphere. Then the 9th sphere is our domestic consciousness, what we're getting growing up in the home, the first few years of our lives, when we are literally sponges, and we're just using our senses to soak up everything that we can find in our environment. We watch our caregivers, we watch what they do, and we memorize what they do, and we copy what they do. So habits and patterns and skills are passed down almost genetically from one generation to the next. So the 9th sphere is about heightened receptivity and memory and imitation. The 8th sphere carries some of those factors forward, but instead of being in the domestic world, in the home, these are in the public sphere, out in the real world, where we begin to go to school and go to church, or what have you. We start to come in contact with the teachers and the preachers out there, and the expert opinion and the conventional wisdom, and these things tell us what we're supposed to believe about life. You're supposed to do it this way. Oh, everybody does it this way. Everybody knows that. Um, and we're taught what the paradigms are. And given that the vast majority of the resources are locked up here in the eighth sphere, we find ourselves kind of rationalizing our belief systems so that we believe what they tell us. Because if we don't believe what they tell us, we are literally punished for it, socially, monetarily, uh, toward the status, in terms of achievement. If we don't regurgitate what they tell us on our college exams, we're going to flunk out. If we don't regurgitate what they tell us in our job, then they're going to fire us. So uh, we usually learn quite quickly to either to believe what they tell us here at the eighth sphere, or at least to pretend to believe what they tell us. Now, the seventh sphere is kind of the alternative to the eighth sphere, where the eighth sphere is about the real world. The seventh sphere is about the imaginary world. So the seventh sphere is really for people who get into the eighth sphere and they find themselves with that conundrum that, I don't believe this, I'm just kind of going through the motions here, because I don't really believe what I'm doing, but I don't really see a way out. And so they eventually, mainly through desperation, they eventually move over here and they imagine a different way that it could be done. And they use the resources or the capabilities over here of the seventh sphere, which is, in addition to imagination, also inspiration, intuition, and our creative spark, our ability to take disparate pieces of things and put them together into harmonious wholes that are pleasing to other people. And so the seventh people at the seventh sphere tend to be the artists and the inventors who come up with things that attempt to improve upon the eighth sphere. Where the eighth sphere is telling you that you're supposed to believe this, you're saying at the seventh sphere, you're saying, well, maybe so, but this is another way to look at it. And you present something different. And also then the seventh sphere gives you kind of a wedge that allows you to move up the tree. That wedge is really the inspiration. You're inspired by somebody who is acting up here in this area, and the inspiration gives you that 1% impetus to make this very hazardous and bumpy journey uphill to the higher spheres. Now, the 1% is enough to get us going, but the 99% of it is the perspiration. So it's a difficult road. As you can see, this is really like a pyramid, with this as the apex of the pyramid. So you have to climb up here, and then you find once you do get up here that the whole thing flips. And now this is, instead of being at the peak, it's actually at the bottom. And so then you have to climb again to get here. So this whole way is uphill, which is, you go uphill and then you end up all the way down, and then you got to go up again. So that's the 99%. Now the sixth sphere is our faculty of free will, or our ability of free will. And free will boils down to paying attention and making decisions. Paying attention is paying attention to what is happening right now, and paying attention is a vector, so it has a direction. you direct your attention on something. So not only do you have to stay in the moment, but you also have to put it on something. And unfortunately, normally, even though we all have this faculty opened up to pay attention, we spend most of our time paying attention down the bottom of the tree toward the ninth and eighth sphere and the 10th sphere, especially. We pay attention to the old belief systems and the old habits that we developed when we were very young. And these are comfortable because we've grown accustomed to them over the years. And so it's very comfortable to stay kind of in this little area here, paying attention. Now, the other aspect of free will is to make decisions. And so that's where you get the leverage here at the sixth sphere, is that you make the decision to turn your attention around and to point your attention up the tree instead of down the tree into, to start with, 4 and 5, which are in most cases not as well defined as 8 and 9. We grew up with these things. We lived with them for many years. But now we're looking at we're trying to pay attention up the tree. And to a great extent, we're paying attention to, kind of the wilderness. We're looking out into the unknown. We don't really know these aspects. We haven't really opened them up yet. And so it's a scary process to go from, living in a comfortable situation where you're paying attention to the lower aspects to moving to a much less comfortable situation where you're kind of staring into the void and you're trying to pay attention to things that you don't really even understand yourself. So, but both of these aspects have within them the ability to understand them. So 5, for example, is in particular our sense of justice. You could also call that the karma. So our karma is simply just, what comes around goes around. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and the boomerang effect. What you do comes back to you. And so karma is normally calibrated based on waste, violence, and violation. So if you are performing wastefully or violently, you will have that thing returned to you. And if you are able to be open enough to get that reception, to really use that feedback, you can fine-tune your actions and say, what I did, that was wasteful and violent. So next time, try not to do it that way. And then you can test your actions. How wasteful and violent were they? And you can learn to clean up your violence and your waste that way by using karma as a teacher. So that is a one way to kind of to define the object of your attention. So no longer are you kind of staring into the void, but you're actually engaging in a conversation with one of your faculties, and you're beginning to be able to understand it a lot better. Now, 5 is generally the enforcement of the law, our sense of justice. It's the enforcement of the natural law. And, this here is just the fake law or the consensus law, the police, the justice system, the judges and the lawmakers. They give you laws by decree. They tell you what you're supposed to do, what's legal and what's not legal. But the fourth sphere law, which eventually becomes the fifth sphere law, the law is enforced here at the fifth sphere. It is articulated here at the fourth sphere. And this fourth sphere law is obtained by observation, investigation, experience, experiment, measurement. This is what comes through generations long of building slowly, how things work in nature and compiling all of the findings into a cosmology or a holy book or theory of everything that purports to describe how everything works. And some of these can be more successful than others. The success is generally measured based on how long does it last. The law itself is eternal. Our interpretation of the law in a cosmology is subject to change. As time goes on, we're always discovering more and more things, and so we have to kind of refine our different cosmologies or theories of everything to stay up with all the new findings, that new observations and the new experiments that are coming out. So, but if we have a successful cosmology, it will stand the test of time, at least, for a while, and before it needs to be revised. And then maybe it'll be revised and it can last longer until it has to be completely overhauled. And that's when you get, what you would call a paradigm shift or something like that. So the fourth and fifth spheres are really our friends here. When we get to the sixth sphere and we decide to pay attention up the tree, these are what holds our hand and shows us, how to proceed. Now these also do, but this is a more direct, because they're right close to us here when we're at the sixth sphere. Now the abyss here is our psychic powers, our ability to tune into and recognize omens, to be able to, the psychic receptivity is our ability to recognize the omen, which is a communication from the universe that shows us relevant things that are important for us to know. And we need to be able to recognize those. Those are synchronicities or coincidences that go beyond statistical standard deviations. They're outliers, and so we need to be able to tune into those and recognize them. Then we also need to be able to act upon them, which requires us again to put ourselves out there and to exercise our courage. The abyss also corresponds to magnetic and electric effects. Then we have this triangle here, 3, 2, and 1. These are the creator within. This is omnipotence, all-powerful, omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom, our ability to solve problems, and then also omnipresence here at the first sphere. This is our unifying factor. You can think of it as the ether from the 19th century physicists and stuff, where they say that there's a medium that underlies everything. Underlying everything is one. And what underlies me at my deepest center is the same thing that underlies you, and the same thing that underlies everything. So everything is united here at the first sphere, because we've broken down all the appearances, all the surface, and we've gotten all the way down to the core. And at the core, we're all the same. And then the zero sphere above the tree has to do with like the mystery, and also with nothingness, zero, meaning that the zero is not part of the universe. The zero is part of the creator. The zero is the part of the creator that is not in the universe. So this is really like the creator's private life. You know, when the creator's not messing around with the universe, it's over in the zero. Okay, then, so those are the 12 faculties of consciousness or abilities of consciousness. In my model, I've also then taken the whole tree and I've shrunk it down and superimposed it on each one of the spheres. So I've broken down the seventh sphere into 12 mini capabilities, and the sixth sphere into 12 mini capabilities. I call those things the stages of consciousness or stages of life. But the stages are not really chronological stages, they're dramatic stages. But I've compiled that list, and I'd be happy to send you a free copy of that annotated list if you click the link in the description. I'll just send that out to you. It'll help you kind of as we go through each one of these 144 different, so that's how many there are, 12 by 12. So 144 different stages of life. You can kind of follow along at home, and you can kind of check each one of them off as I do them, and then you can compare and contrast, and you can let me know if you think this one that you have at number, this one that you have at number 78, I think it should be at number 67 instead. And I think you should switch those two, or however you think of it, because once you do understand the tree, you can really work with it and use it yourself. It's dogma free, or it's largely free of dogma. Now today, my 144 fractal faculties, that's a bit of an advanced teaching, okay? So when we just do the 12, that's like the beginner aspect of this. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, then you go to the 144 different stages. So you want to get the 12 understood first. And then that 144 is a little bit of a more advanced teaching. Okay, so now we're moving toward the more advanced part of this video, which is number 109. So number 109 is located here in the second sphere, and it is the 10th fractal of the second sphere. So the second sphere is omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom, and it is also breaking through the sound barrier, because the third sphere, omnipotence, is about sound synchronization, whereas the second sphere is about really like coherent light. So when we move from the third to the second sphere, we're really breaking the sound barrier, and we're moving into this universe that's more or less silent. And the 10th sphere within that is about, survival and fight or flight, the state of the body, the health of the body. And so this 109 is about that fractal within this omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom. And so this is called What Happens When We Cross into the World of Time. Stage number 109 is called A Separate Reality. Stage number 109 is about moving out of 3D space and into the world of 3D time, which has different rules that are equally real, but utterly mind-blowing. Submerged deep in meditation until procession, phase change, tripping out hard, blown away by the flip across a speed boundary, across a unit boundary into a new world, blown mind. When the light comes on in the third eye, the initiate opens access to wisdom, crossing into the cosmic aspects of the universe, where measurements are made in time instead of space, But we cannot see time, only space. So when we convert time back into space through reciprocity, we call it equivalent space, which is a two-dimensional relation. For example, a white dwarf star is an explosion in time, which we cannot see, but we can see it as an implosion in space. So it looks like a really small, really dense star, even though it isn't. It is really very large and diffuse, but in time. The stronger the explosion, the smaller and denser we see the star. Inverse blowup, implosion, with the matter moving toward the surface, a hollow sphere. Time has been emptied beyond all logical density because we can't see time. Same with galaxies, exploded in time, which we call quasars. Or is that a psyop from the astronomer quasars? We are exploding into time, into the latter stages of insight, into the time region, seen in equivalent space, blown away back into the time region, 3D time, the inverse of which is equivalent space. When the light comes on in the third eye, the initiate opens access to wisdom, but the wisdom comes in jolts, in pulses, and it can overwhelm. For this reason, psychedelic plant substances which can be used to activate the third eye can be dangerous without the proper prerequisites and postrequisites. Theoretically, a star explodes, and if sufficiently powerful, the bigger the white dwarf, the smaller and the denser. Surely all those stars and galaxies were not designed only to be romantic scenery for human moods, right? The stars are for signs, and God named the stars. Astrology is the synthesizer of all sciences. The brain itself is a receiver operated upon by celestial influences, angels or angles. Astrology, the process, chemical and physiological, whereby perfection and illumination may be attained. Astrology as a perfect system of analysis, synthesis, and allocation which links up space, time, activity, and mankind. The purpose of astrology is to furnish us with the astrochemical plan for our physical and mental regeneration. A new seed is born within us every 29 days, when every moon cycle. When the moon is in the sign in which the sun was at the birth of the individual. When the first seed is saved, the entire body is changed. The pineal gland becomes hard like a rock. The sun rules the pineal and the moon the pituitary. Bathe in their light. Astrology and astronomy may be a perfect system, but astrologers and astronomers are not. But both astrology and astronomy are heavily populated by grifters. So learn to do it yourself. The stars are signs, and God made the stars. The zodiac by months or months under the firmament. Equivalent space, no depth. Aries through Pisces, we go through the zodiac. Pisces through Aries, we go through the precession cycle backwards, the tilt of the earth. Pisces through Aries is about 26,000 times slower. Birotation precession. The stars are for signs, but beware of bias and BS. Learn to read them ourselves. Okay, that is number 109, which is called a separate reality. And that is the 10th fractal of the second sphere. The second sphere is a lot to do with astronomy and astrology. If we look at the scholastic European, Middle Ages and the quadrivium that they studied from the Roman. The quadrivium is like the 4 highest aspects of their curriculum. We have music, which is a 3rd sphere thing. We have astronomy and astrology, which is a 2nd sphere thing. We have geometry and sacred geometry, which is a 1st sphere thing. And then we have mathematics and numerology as a 0 sphere thing. So the 2nd sphere does have a lot to do with astronomy and astrology. Okay, that is it. So thank you for making it all the way to the end. And you can click the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel. And my links are in there. There's a link that you can click to get that free list of the 144 fractal faculties. And my Venmo and Cash App are also on there that you can kindly donate to me if you're getting anything out of these videos and you'd like to see more. All right, have a beautiful day. See you tomorrow.